السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحب أن يبسط له في رزقه وينسأ له في أثره فليصل رحمه. صدق الله مولانا العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Respected friends and elders, for the past quite a few Jumu'ah we've been discussing about different ways to attain barakah in our Rizq. We mentioned many different ways, and today we'll continue on with that topic of how to increase barakah in our Rizq, our health, our wealth. How can we continue to increase barakah in that? How can we increase the blessings of Allah Ta'ala in that? So today we'll be speaking about the topic of joining family ties. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he brings a very important hadith when he says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim ضيفه." He says that the one who believes in Allah Ta'ala and the last messenger, and who believes in the last day, the day of judgment, then he should do the following things. He mentions a few things, and the reason why he prefaces it by saying this, the one who believes in Allah on the last day, is to show the importance and emphasize how important these things are. So the first he says is that the one who believes in Allah on the last day, he should honor his guests. He should honor his guests. When we have guests, we should honor them and take care of them. Thereafter he says, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَصِلْ رَحِمَهُ. The one who believes in Allah and the last day, he should join family ties. He should join family ties. So much importance given that it's tied with Iman. It's tied with Iman in Allah, and it's tied with Iman of the day of judgment. That a person who believes in Allah and the last day, they should join family ties. This is how important it is to ensure that we continue and we maintain our relationships. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean to join family ties? In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ expounds, and he explains what it means to join family ties. So he says, لَيْسَ الْوَاصِلُ بِالْمُكَافِي. He says that the one who reciprocates goodness is not the definition of doing silatul rahim. Doing silatul rahim, when someone is kind to you, meaning you're reciprocating kindness. It's very easy. It's very easy to be nice and kind to the people who are nice and kind to you. ولكن الواصل الذي إذا قطعت رحمه وصلها. But instead, the one who is actually doing silatul rahim is the one who the other party is trying to break that family tie. The other side is trying to cut off relations, and they are the ones who are trying to build and trying to preserve that family relationship. So as I said, it's not easy to maintain family ties with someone who is constantly trying to break it. Whereas it's much easier to join family ties with the people who are nice to you. If you have relatives who are kind and nice to you, it's very simple and easy to be nice and kind to them. But to be kind and nice to the ones who are being mean to you, that's very difficult. Once a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and this person, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I have relatives, and this is a hadith Muslim. He says that I have relatives who they are constantly trying to break off the family ties. They are constantly trying to break the family ties, whereas I'm trying to constantly join the family ties. And he says, I do good to them, they do evil things to me. I do good to them and they do evil things to me. And I am patient with them, whereas they're not patient with me. Right? They don't care about me. They don't do things for me. They're not nice to me. I try being nice. They're not nice to me. Right? And this, in our minds, many relatives may come up. When we think of this hadith, when we think of this story, some of our own relatives may come up. Right? We may think of our own relatives, and we're nice to them, we're kind to them, yet they're not kind to us. And if you don't have relatives like that, it's likely you're the relative. It's likely that you're the one who's causing the problems. Nevertheless, right? So he says that this is the problem, that I'm nice to them, they're not nice to me, they're mean to me. So what should I do? Rasulullah says that, listen, if the scenario is as you have described, if this is the truth, then it's as if you are throwing ashes in their faces. I'll explain. He says, if the scenario is as you describe, then it's as if you are throwing ashes in their faces. The scholars, they explain what this means. This means that technically you are trying to be nice to them, but their mean attitude towards you is what's going to fuel their Jahannam. Because they're being mean to you despite your kindness. And so they're fueling their own Jahannam. And so he said, if the situation is as you described, then as if you're throwing ash in their face. And then he said, وَلَا يَزَالُ مَعَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ ظَهِيرٌ عَلَيْهِمْ مَا دُمْتَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. Allah Ta'ala will continuously remain as an assister to you. Allah Ta'ala will continue to remain as a helper to you so long as you remain like this. So long as you remain in this situation that you are being nice to them, despite their mean attitude towards you, you will find Allah as a helper for you. So this is how important it is for us to be nice and kind and join family ties. As I said, it's easy to do it with kind relatives. It's much more difficult to do it when the relatives are not nice. When they're constantly doing things, when they're constantly starting arguments, when they're constantly doing things that will break that relationship. They're looking for small things to break the relationship. They gossip frequently. They take words out of your mouth. It's very difficult rather, to maintain those types of relationships. But that's where we will find the reward of Allah. That's where we will find all of the blessings of Allah. That's where we will find all of the rewards of doing Silat al-Rahim. Silat al-Rahim is this topic of joining family ties. There are many virtues for it, and there are many sins about breaking family ties. Related to breaking family ties, there's a few severe warnings from the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll speak about them. So it's mentioned in a hadith of Muslim. Rasulullah ﷺ said that after Allah Ta'ala created all of the creation, then the Silatul Rahim, Allah gave it a physical body. However it was, we don't know, right? But Allah Ta'ala gave it the aspect, Allah gave it the ability to speak. So the Silatul Rahim asked Allah, Ya Allah, is this a place where I can seek protection from you? So Allah said, yes. So the Silatul Rahim, he seeks protection from Allah Ta'ala. So, Ya Allah, these people will break me, right? These people will destroy me. And so Rasulullah quotes Allah Ta'ala saying, that listen, أَمَا تَرْضَيْنَ أَنْ أَصِلَ مَنْ وَصَلَكِ وَأَقْطَعَ مَنْ قَطَعَكِ. He said, Allah Ta'ala, he says that, are you not happy that I join ties with those people who join your ties, and I cut off ties with those who cut off your ties? So the one who joins their family ties, Allah Ta'ala will remain united with them. But the ones who break their families, the ones who don't maintain relationships with their families, Allah Ta'ala will not maintain a relationship with them. So understand, sometimes we find relatives who, unfortunately, they speak very bad about us. They have no manners. They don't speak nicely. They don't speak kindly. They always speak to us when they want something from us, and so on and so forth. This is many of our relatives, unfortunately. And so when we deal with these relatives, we should always be in the most kindest of manners. We should always be respectful, and we should always be nice. despite their attitude towards us, always you should maintain the best of behaviors. And so moving on from that aspect where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam quotes Allah Ta'ala saying that I will join ties with those who join ties with you, and I will cut off ties with those who cut off ties with you. There are a few other ahadith related to this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ar-rahimu shijnatun, faman wasalaha wasaltuhu." That these ties, these familial ties, these are derived from the same word of rahmah. Rahim, this womb. Rahim is known as the womb, right? So this word is derived from the word rahmah. So Rasulullah says, Ar-Rahim Shijna, right? This womb or this familial tie, it's derived from the word rahmah. And so the one who joins these family ties, wasaltuhu, I will join those family ties, and the one who cuts off those family ties, I will cut them. In another hadith, very similar hadith, Rasulullah he says the same thing, that Allah Ta'ala, he says that the one who joins these family ties, Allah Ta'ala, he will join the family, the one who joins family ties, Allah Ta'ala will be united and connected with him, and the one who doesn't do it, Allah Ta'ala will disunite that from that person. And finally, in one last version of this one hadith, Rasulullah he said, فَمَنْ قَطَعَ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ, that the one who cuts off these family ties, Allah Ta'ala will prohibit Jannah for that individual. Allah Ta'ala will make Jannah haram for that individual, the one who cuts off family ties. Again, حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ Jannah. Allah Ta'ala will make Jannah haram for this person, the one who cuts family ties. Right? So, understand this concept of joining family ties, we understand it, we deal with our families all the time. Unfortunately, these are the people we often take for granted. We take our families for granted, our siblings, our parents, our spouses, our children, whoever it may be, our uncles, aunts, cousins, whoever we consider. These are the people we should give them the most respect, and we should try to be nice and respectful to them despite their attitude towards us. Even if they are mean to us, we should try to be nice and kind to them, and that's where we'll find the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. We understand this final version of the hadith I mentioned, it's very scary. In another hadith, Rasulullah more explicitly he mentions, he says, "La yadkhulu jannata qati'ur rahim." He says that the one who cuts off family ties, he will not enter Jannah. He will not enter Jannah, the one who cuts off family ties. Right? So yes, I understand it's hard, it's difficult to maintain family relationships with those who are constantly, matlabi people who ask, or people who always want something from you, people who only reach out to you when they need something, people who always speak ill of you, people who backbite, people who speak bad of you and your family, and so on. These are people, it's unfortunately sometimes it's very difficult to do this. But we remember all of these ahadith. Remember all of these ahadith and try to maintain those relationships. Go out of your way. So whatever you have to do, even if you have to be the bigger person and apologize for something which you did not do, you still do it. Unfortunately, there are many people who, siblings, they don't speak to each other. How many of us, we don't speak to our brothers or sisters? How many of us, we don't speak to, unfortunately, our cousins or our aunts or uncles, unfortunately? For a lengthy period, we don't speak to our relatives for silly reasons, unfortunately. For silly reasons, we don't speak to our relatives, unfortunately. And sometimes it's deserving. Sometimes it is deserving. But oftentimes it's not deserving. And so therefore, when the time comes that for us to apologize, for them to apologize, don't wait for that apology. Don't wait for it. Don't think that they will apologize one day and they will ask forgiveness. It's never going to happen. Instead, you must be the better person and apologize. And try to maintain those family ties. If you do these things, believe me, you'll find the reward with Allah Ta'ala. You'll find the reward with Allah Ta'ala. So we understand that this, the most merciful of humans, Rasulullah who was the most merciful of all humans, he's the one who's saying that a person who breaks family ties will not enter Jannah. The scholars, they explain that this doesn't necessarily mean that they'll never enter Jannah. Because of this iman, a person will eventually, one day, maybe inshallah, they'll enter Jannah. But because of breaking family ties, unfortunately, they will be delayed in their entry to Jannah. So next time when we deal with our families, when we're spending time with our families, we should be extremely careful about what we say. We should be extremely careful about what we do, and try never to break those family ties. Try never to say anything or do anything that would break that family. Unfortunately, it doesn't take much. Shaitan wants to break our families. Shaitan wants us to move apart from our families. And so therefore, Shaitan will try his utmost best to break our families. Even small, simple things. How often did it happen that over a simple, small thing, huge arguments occur? And because of those arguments, people don't speak for weeks and months. Relatives, I've seen even parents not speaking to their children for months at a time. Or why? Because simple, small issues. Small issues, they don't speak to each other for months at a time. Sometimes years as well. They don't speak to their relatives, their close relatives, unfortunately. So Shaitan, if we allow Shaitan to win, if we allow Shaitan to break the family ties, then unfortunately we will miss out on all of this, and we'll be recipients of these severe warnings from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he came to people, again, understand, he came to people who are literally at war with one another. They're all descendants of the same people, yet they were still fighting. Yet they were constantly fighting over small issues. Similarly, to us, it's big issues, right? If we retrospect and we think about it, we'll understand that these were not, in reality, not large issues. Instead, they were much smaller issues, but we made them out to be much bigger than they intended to be. So as much as possible, we should forgive and forget, especially when it comes to family. Try not to allow any of them don't allow Shaitan to disunite us or to break the family. Unfortunately, that will be the cause of our downfall. We continue in another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, ما من ذنب أجدر أن يعجل الله تعالى لصاحبه العقوبة في الدنيا مع ما يدخر له في الآخرة. He says that there's no sin which will accumulate, which will bring the punishment of Allah Ta'ala, which will bring the wrath of Allah Ta'ala in this world, as well as the punishment of the Akhirah. He mentions one, and the second thing he mentions is the breaking of family ties. He mentions the first, and then the second is breaking the family ties. The people who break their family ties, they will find the punishment beginning in this dunya and continuing on to the Akhirah, unfortunately. So he says that there's no sin which earns the wrath of Allah Ta'ala as quickly, and not only bringing the wrath of Allah in this world, but also accumulating sin and punishment for the Akhirah as baghi, and which is basically going against the Islamic government. And then secondly is this breaking of family ties. Again, when we break a family, we break a community. When you break that community, you break that entire area, and you break that entire nation. And that's why it's extremely important for each family to remain connected. If we can remain connected as a family, we'll remain stronger and we'll build together as a community. But once the families are separated, once unfortunately people are not speaking to one another, their own relatives, that's when unfortunately the communities start breaking. And then eventually that leads to the breakdown of the nation. Right? So it has long-lasting effects. And that's why there's so much emphasis behind joining family ties. That's why it's extremely important that we join our family ties, that we maintain our relationships. That despite whatever problems there are, no matter what they said, no matter what they did, it's more important that we forgive them. It's important that we forgive them. Now, related to this, one more final hadith before I mention the hadith of khutbah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that in the a'mal bani Adam, tu'radu kulla khamis laylatul jum'ah. He says that the a'mal and the actions of the bani Adam, of us, are presented to Allah Ta'ala every Thursday, every Friday night. Meaning Thursday night, which is Jum'ah night, the night before Friday. And so he said the actions of Bani Adam are presented On Thursday, which is the night before Jumu'ah, and of course we know in Islam the date starts the night before. And so he says that all of the actions of Bani Adam are presented on this Thursday, except for فَلَا يُقْبَلُ عَمَلٌ قَاطِعِ الرَّحِمِ. He says, but the person who breaks family ties, that person's action will not be accepted. So that entire week, whatever you did in that entire week, it will all go to waste if you break your family ties. And if this perpetuates, if this continues, then on a weekly basis, that person's action will not be accepted. So this is how important it is for us to join our family ties, to ensure that we don't allow our families to break apart, that we don't allow Shaitan to disunite us. Along with that, the topic which we've been discussing about Barakah and Rizq. Right? How does Barakah and Rizq fall into this? In a beautiful hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the one who wishes, the one who wishes that Allah Ta'ala increase in his sustenance, Allah increases in his sustenance, and the one who wishes that Allah prolongs his life, he should join his family ties. Why is it? Why is it that we find our elders, our parents, our grandparents, we found them living very long lives? Generally, they would be more closer. Generally, they join their family ties. Unfortunately, we are breaking these family ties. Yes, many of us, our relatives are not local. Many of our relatives are abroad. They're very far away. It's more important that we take care of them as well. It's important that we take care of them as well. Unfortunately, there are times when we find that people here, us living here, we're doing very well, alhamdulillah. And our own siblings, we find our own siblings eligible for zakat. We find our own siblings eligible for zakat. How can that be? How can that be that a person is living very comfortably here, whereas his own family, or his own siblings, relatives, close relatives, brother, sister is struggling and is eligible for zakat? How can that be that we're living so comfortably, not concerned and not worried about them? And so if you want, again, leave aside all of the other prohibitions, all of the warnings and everything else. At least as a selfish reason, if you want Allah Ta'ala to put barakah in your rizq, if you want Allah Ta'ala to give you a long life, then you should join your family ties. So this is the way that we can connect. We can find barakah in our rizq if we join our family ties, despite whatever problems, despite whatever they say. I repeat the hadith of Rasulullah said, لَيْسَ الْوَاصِلُ بِالْمُكَافِي. The one who joins family ties or the one who reciprocates kindness is not the one who is doing Silatul Rahim. Instead, the one who is doing Silatul Rahim when others are being mean and others are being disrespectful, that's the person who is doing Silatul Rahim. So make sure, despite what they do to you, despite what others say to you, try to maintain and try to keep your family ties, even if you don't speak to them. If let's say you have some distant relative you don't speak to, every now and then try to check in on them, try to speak and see if they need anything. Whatever you can do to help, you try to help. Next week's topic is on sadaqah and how sadaqah can give barakah in others, which is a very common understanding. But the hadith of Rasulullah is that the one who gives charity to a stranger, he gets the reward of charity. But the one who gives sadaqah to a relative, he gets double reward. He gets the reward of giving charity and he gets the reward of taking care of the relatives. And so especially when it comes to zakat, when it comes to charity, we should always try to give to our relatives. We should always try to take care of our close family. If they need something, we should try to help them. If they're zakat eligible, help them with zakat. If you can help them beyond that as well, even beyond the zakat, try to help them as well, inshallah. On that note, just to make one announcement and conclude, inshallah. As many of us know, unfortunately, what's happening in Pakistan right now, with the floods and the people who are suffering, the current statistics, according to the most recent data, is that about 1/3 of the entire country is underwater. About one third of the entire country is underwater. More than 1,000 More than 1,100 people have passed away. 1,100, more than that have passed away. And many hundreds of thousands of people, they're losing their homes, structures, so many problems that they're facing. And the latest number is 6.4 million people. 6.4 million people need humanitarian assistance. 6.4 million people need humanitarian assistance. And so many of us, we are from the Indian subcontinent, even if we're not from the Indian subcontinent, even if we're not from Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, we understand that our Muslims, our people are suffering. And recently, not too long ago, Bangladesh was facing severe floods. But these types of floods, especially what's happening right now in Pakistan, from Afghanistan also, some parts of Afghanistan leading into Pakistan as well, it's unprecedented. In the entire history of Pakistan, what they're saying is that this has never happened before. This has never been this bad. And so, mashallah, there are some great efforts taking place. Alhamdulillah, there are many people who are trying to help on the ground, and then we, alhamdulillah, support whatever we can do. Alhamdulillah, whatever you can do, you try to help, you try to support them. There's an organization here, Life as well, who's here today with us. They've already sent funds. Right? They're not waiting. You cannot wait and then collect funds and then send it out. They've already sent out funds, but they're constantly sending funds. Right? They're constantly assisting different places. Even they helped in Bangladesh, they helped in Afghanistan, and all of the places wherever people are suffering, they're always helping, mashallah. So I believe they have a stall outside. I didn't see it, but I believe they have a stall set up. So if you would like, please help them, inshallah. Whatever you can. Again, this is for our people. Our people are suffering. Our Muslims are suffering. Right? Whether we're from Pakistan, whether we're from the Indian subcontinent, leave aside all of our political, all of our national, whatever issues that we have, leave aside all of those things and try to help the people on the ground. The brother who was the manager or whatever of Life, he sent me pictures today or yesterday. He sent me pictures of them on the ground helping, mashallah. And so they're doing good work, mashallah. Try to help. If you want the pictures, I can forward it to you as well, inshallah. Please try to help them, do whatever you can, inshallah. And Allah Ta'ala accept it from us. Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to practice my Quran.